Two voices that contrast like the wild elk and moose of Michigan and the domesticated and broken-in black horses of Pennsylvania are Dr. Wayne Dyer from Detroit and Dr. Avram Noam Chomsky from Philadelphia. Their perspectives contrast like opposite poles of a magnet. Dyer set the gold standard as the penultimate self-help guru, taking a deep dive into the irrational and mystical side of life, and becoming a supreme advocate for the law of attraction and the power of synchronicity. He concluded that everything is underscored by a powerful force of divine proportions. At the extreme opposite end of this everywhere magnet of human consciousness is Chomsky, who took the rational football of hard-nosed, objective, detached, non-emotional thinking and never stopped running or looked back. Dyer and Chomsky were both platformed by PBS and have legions of pupils who contrast like oil and water, yet the two are united along several lines of thought as exemplars of civil discourse. Both men have or had profoundly deep perspectives of contrasting salinities, champion peace between all nations, or were fundamentalists in the human spirit in all its songs, whether good, bad, ugly, or beautiful. Pennsylvania and Michigan coincidentally have marmots in their state ethos that are superficially similar, yet so very different. The groundhog is not a hog, but it is Pennsylvania's most celebrated marmot, a shy, chubby ground squirrel that wouldn't hurt a fly. The early pioneers were so taken by its cuddly mystique that it resulted in Groundhog Day, an original non-denominational American holiday. Every February 2nd, the nation turns its attention to the small central Pennsylvania town of Punxsutawney to deduce the length of winter if a ground squirrel should see its own shadow. The nation has never much to do for this yearly winter event, but it did result in a charming cinematic classic, Groundhog Day, in 1993. Across the shore of Lake Erie, another marmot is held in high esteem, the wolverine, but its name is also a misnomer since it is not related to the wolf family. The wolverine is slightly larger than a groundhog, more like a miniature grizzly bear ready to defend its honor with ferocity. But the holiday special centered on Michigan that matches the sounding soulful enchantment of Groundhog Day is Prancer, 1989, a story that expands on one of Santa's lost reindeer and clarifies what is most precious during the holidays. Thus, Three Oaks, Michigan is a perfect match for Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania. Coincidentally, each state is associated with a lauded flag maker, and each state was able to seize the mysterious, ever-spotty limelight of history. First, we have Betsy Ross, born in 1752. She became a seamstress associated with the eponymously famous version of the Revolutionary flag, the Betsy Ross flag. There is no doubt Betsy Ross knew George Washington since they went to the same church. Some 200 years later, Pennsylvania's guardian angel state gave rise to another semi-legendary flag maker, Robert G. Heft, who was of the first generation to sew the iconic 50-starred flag. Heft sewed the flag for a school project and would claim that the modern U.S. flag is based on his design. If Ross or Robert would have saved their receipts and other hard evidence of their contributions to the design of the American flag, their stories would actually garner less curiosity and interest. The hard evidence is that Francis Hopkinson was the chairman of the Continental Navy Board's Middle Department when the U.S. flag resolution was adopted in 1777. At the time, Hopkinson wrote a letter to Congress dated May 25, 1780, requesting booze as compensation for his flag design. Francis Hopkinson wrote a request for a quarter cask of public wine as payment. Francis' request was denied, and Hopkinson did not write anything more about his grand contribution to America's identity. Likewise, the hard evidence for the current 50-starred flag points to a subcommittee in the Defense Department. which established the pattern for adding stars long before Heft would have conceived of a 50-starred flag. Yet, Robb was the first American to sew a 50-starred flag before it became official, rather than just drawing it on paper. This alone is a noteworthy achievement. Similarly, the legacy of Betsy Ross was first to establish a claim with the Betsy Ross flag, with a focus on the shape of the stars being 5-pointed instead of 6. However, Robert's story does not quite add up. Likewise, Betsy Ross's story seems to have some extra yarns that do not mesh with the record of history. The Betsy Ross flag is now an icon immutably associated with its assumed creator. Furthermore, her name, Betsy Ross, shouts on the hilltops of history the spirit of the American Revolution. Also, it's a fact that she was a patriot, and it is a near certainty she sewed the first generation of American flags, since she was a seamstress. These facts alone make her worthy of recognition as a patriotic pioneer and highlight the oft-overlooked contributions of women who aided the cause. As it is, the element of mystery associated with Betsy Ross is the crowning jewel that adds an enchanted sparkle to her name. As a mystery always has a more magnetic appeal than a stone-cold, undisputed fact. Mystery provides a proverbial mana that can create a bridge to span the centuries, which allows life to breathe itself into the past. Coincidentally, by sheer fate, Robert Heft was living in Ohio at the time of his special flag project at Lancaster High School, just outside of Columbus. It's a certain kind of synchronicity that a man from Ohio would later plant a carbon copy of Robert's flag on the moon, half a score, after the prototype manifested on Earth in Ohio. At the moment, Betsy Ross's claim has some serious doubts, and it's quite obvious that Robert Heft, by accident or on purpose, had experienced creative and embellished memories that originate somewhere between reality and a dream. Nonetheless, it's a near certainty that Betsy Ross sewed the first versions of the American flag, and it is a fact that Robert made a 50-starred flag before it was official. Nevertheless, and forevermore, Pennsylvania and Michigan were the first to cast a luminous shadow upon two very specials of the American flag at the beginning in 1776 and upon the celestial year of Jubilee in 1969. From a certain distance, the flags of Pennsylvania and Michigan can be mistaken as one for the other. Do the structural similarities of these state banners on opposite shores of Lake Erie add up to nothing more than an eerie coincidence? Perhaps there is a deep power behind profound coincidence. The correlations between certain coincidences are fundamental aspects to learn, as positive and negative connections are perpetually constructed within the mind's eye, which allow for the emergence of pattern recognition. Some types of knowledge must be broken in as one breaks in a horse, with patience and due diligence, as echoed by the supporters of Pennsylvania. However, there are other aspects to knowledge that are grounded to the wild and random matrix of life, which can be associated with the organic, unbroken ungulates of Michigan. This journey begins with a regal send-off from the Keystone State, where our path begins at the intersection of synchronicity and Providence.
And that is just the end of Chapter 1 of my book, The Flag Revelation by Christopher Maddish. I'll be doing Chapter 2 next, but if you want me to jump around and do your favorite state, please leave a comment below. Let a friend know. Subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. Likewise, I'm thinking of having a further discussion about the whole providential concept outside of the book. So join me there. Look for updates. Thank you so much, and you have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day.